38 The Genesis Apocryphon, 1 Cap Gen. Found in Cave 1, and published by N. Abigat and Y. Yotten, A Genesis Apocryphon, Jerusalem, 1956, 1 Cap Gen is an incomplete manuscript with 22 surviving columns of Aramaic text. Remains of a further column, the Genesis Apocryphon Kernel 12, have since been edited by J. C. Greenfield and E. Qumran, Studies in Qumran Aramaic, Abridged Narain, Supple 3, 1992, 70, 77. Only the translated 6 columns are more or less well preserved. Columns 2, v narrate the miraculous birth of Noah, whose father, Lamech, suspects that his wife has conceived by one of the fallen angels. Her denials fail to convince him and he asks his father, Methuselah, to travel to paradise and obtain reassurance from his own father, Enoch. Columns 6 through 15 contain Noah's first-person account of the flood and of his journeys, which end with a covenant with God and are followed by visions. 2 further columns, 16 through 17, deal with the division of the earth among the sons of Noah. Columns 19 through XXII, corresponding to General 12 through 15, deal with Abraham's journey to Egypt, his return to Canaan, the war against the invading Mesopotamian kings, and the renewal to him of a divine promise of a son. This lively and delightful narrative, largely devoid of sectarian bias, throws valuable light on intertestamental Bible interpretation. It is a mixture of Targum, Midrash, rewritten Bible, and autobiography. Most scholars assign the manuscript to the late 1st century BC or the first half of the 1st century CE. The composition itself is generally thought to originate from the 2nd century BC. Its relationship to the mid-2nd century Book of Jubilees is generally accepted, but views differ on whether it depends on Jubilees or vice versa. I slightly prefer the theory that in its pre-Qumran version the Genesis Apocryphon precedes Jubilees, which would postulate for the former a date at least as early as the first half of the 2nd century BC. To behold, I thought then within my heart that conception was due to the watchers and the holy ones, and to the giants, and my heart was troubled within me because of this child. Then I, Lamech, approached Bathnosh my wife in haste and said to her, By the Most High, the great Lord, the King of all the worlds and ruler of the sons of heaven, until you tell me all things truthfully, if tell me this truthfully and not falsely, by the King of all the worlds until you tell me truthfully and not falsely. Then Bathnosh my wife spoke to me with much heat and said, O my brother, O my Lord, remember my pleasure, the lying together and my soul within its body. And I tell you all things truthfully. My heart was then greatly troubled within me, and when Bathnosh my wife saw that my countenance had changed, then she mastered her anger and spoke to me saying, O my Lord, O my brother, remember my pleasure. I swear to you by the Holy Great One, the King of the heavens, that this seed is yours and that this conception is from you. This fruit was planted by you, and by no stranger or watcher or son of heaven. Why is your countenance thus changed and dismayed, and why is your spirit thus distressed? I speak to you truthfully. Then I, Lamech, ran to Methuselah my father, and I told him all these things. And I asked him to go to Enoch his father for he would surely learn all things from him. For he was beloved, and he shared the lot of the angels, who taught him all things. And when Methuselah heard my words, he went to Enoch his father to learn all things truthfully from him, his will. He went at once to Perwain and he found him there. And he said to Enoch his father, O my father, O my Lord, to whom I. And I say to you, lest you be angry with me because I come here. 12. In the mountains of Ararat, HWRRT. And afterwards I descended. I and my sons and the sons of my sons, for the destruction was great on the earth, after the flood. To my first son Shem was born, to begin with, a son, Arphaxad, 2 years after the flood. And all the sons of Shem, all of them, were Elam and Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram, and 5 daughters. And the sons of Ham, Cush and Misraim and Put and Canaan, and 7 daughters. And the sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Yavan and Tubal and Meshach and Tiras, and 4 daughters. And I began, I and all my sons, to fill the land and I planted a big vineyard on Mount Liber and in the 4th year it produced wine for me. And when the first festival came, on the first day of the first festival in the month, I opened this jar, and I began to drink on the first day of the 5th year. On this day I summoned my sons, my grandsons, and all our wives and their daughters, and we assembled together and we went, and I blessed the Lord of heaven, the Most High God, the great Holy One who saved us from perdition. 19. And I said, Thou art. Until now you have not come to the holy mountain. And I, Abraham, departed, and I traveled towards the south, until I came to Hebron at the time when Hebron was being built, and I dwelt there 2 years. Now there was famine in all this land, and hearing that there was prosperity in Egypt I went, to the land of Egypt. I came to the river Carmel, one of the branches of the river, Nile, and I crossed the 7 branches of the river. We passed through our land and entered the land of the sons of Ham, the land of Egypt. And on the night of our entry into Egypt, I, Abram, dreamed a dream, and behold, I saw in my dream a cedar tree and a palm tree. Men came and they sought to cut down the cedar tree and to pull up its roots, leaving the palm tree, standing, alone. But the palm tree cried out saying, Do not cut down the cedar tree, for cursed be he who shall fell it. And the cedar tree was spared because of the palm tree and was not felled. And during the night I woke from my dream, and I said to Sarai my wife, I have dreamed a dream. And I am fearful because of this dream. She said to me, Tell me your dream that I may know it. So I began to tell her this dream. The interpretation of the dream. that they will seek to kill me, but will spare you. Say to them of me, he is my brother, and because of you I shall live, and because of you my life shall be saved. And Sarai wept that night on account of my words. Then we journeyed towards Zoan, I and Sarai, by her life that none should see her. And when those 5 years had passed, 3 men from among the princes of Egypt came at the command of Pharaoh of Zoan to inquire after my business and after my wife, and they gave goodness, wisdom, and truth. And I exclaimed before them, because of the famine. And they came to ascertain, with much food and drink, the wine. During the party, the Egyptians must have seen Sarai, and on their return they praised her to the king. XX. And beautiful is her face. How fine are the hairs of her head. How lovely are her eyes. How desirable her nose and all the radiance of her countenance. How fair are her breasts and how beautiful all her whiteness. How pleasing are her arms and how perfect her hands, and how desirable all the appearance of her hands. How fair are her palms and how long and slender are her fingers. How comely are her feet, how perfect her thighs. No virgin or bride led into the marriage chamber is more beautiful than she is fairer than all other women. Truly, her beauty is greater than theirs. Yet together with all this grace she possesses abundant wisdom, so that whatever she does is perfect. When the king heard the words of Harkinosh and his 2 companions, for all 3 spoke as with one voice, he desired her greatly and sent out at once to take her. And seeing her, he was amazed by all her beauty and took her to be his wife, but me he sought to kill. Sarai said to the king, he is my brother, that I might benefit from her, and I, Abram, was spared because of her and I was not slain. And I, Abram, wept aloud that night, I and my nephew Lot, because Sarai had been taken from me by force. I prayed that night and I begged and implored, and I said in my sorrow while my tears ran down, Blessed art thou, O Most High God, Lord of all the worlds, thou who art Lord and King of all things and who rulest over all the kings of the earth and judgest them all. I cry now before thee, my Lord, against Pharaoh of Zoan the king of Egypt, because of my wife who has been taken from me by force. Judge him for me that I may see thy mighty hand raised against him and against all his household, and that he may not be able to defile my wife this night, separating her from me, and that they may know thee, my Lord, that thou art Lord of all the kings of the earth. And I wept and was sorrowful. And during that night the Most High God sent a spirit to scourge him, an evil spirit to all his household, and it scourged him and all his household. And he was unable to approach her, and although he was with her for 2 years, he knew her not. At the end of those 2 years the scourges and afflictions grew greater and more grievous upon him and all his household, so he sent for all the sages of Egypt, for all the magicians, together with all the healers of Egypt, that they might heal him and all his household of this scourge. But not one healer or magician or sage could stay to cure him, for the spirit scourged them all and they fled. Then Harkinosh came to me, beseeching me to go to the king and to pray for him and to lay my hands upon him that he might live, for the king had dreamed a dream. But Lot said to him, Abram my uncle cannot pray for the king while Sarai his wife is with him. Go, therefore, and tell the king to restore his wife to her husband, then he will pray for him and he shall live. When Harkinosh had heard the words of Lot, he went to the king and said, All these scourges and afflictions with which my lord the king is scourged and afflicted are because of Sarai the wife of Abram. Let Sarai be restored to Abram her husband, and this scourge and the spirit of festering shall vanish from you. And he called me and said, What have you done to me with regard to Sarai? You said to me, She is my sister, whereas she is your wife, and I took her to be my wife. Behold your wife who is with me, depart and go hence from all the land of Egypt. And now pray for me and my house that this evil spirit may be expelled from it. So I prayed for him, and I laid my hands on his head, and the scourge departed from him and the evil spirit was expelled from him, and he lived. And the king rose to tell me, and the king swore an oath to me that, and the king gave her much silver and gold and much raiment of fine linen and purple. And Hagar also, and he appointed men to lead me out of all the land of Egypt. And I, Abram, departed with very great flocks and with silver and gold, and I went up from Egypt together with my nephew Lot. Lot had great flocks also, and he took a wife for himself from among the daughters of Egypt. I pitched my camp. XXI in every place in which I had formerly camped until I came to Bethel, the place where I had built an altar. And I built a second altar and laid on it a sacrifice, and an offering to the Most High God. And there I called on the name of the Lord of worlds and praised the name of God and blessed God, and I gave thanks before God for all the riches and favors which he had bestowed on me. For he had dealt kindly towards me and had led me back in peace into this land. After that day, Lot departed from me on account of the deeds of our shepherds. He went away and settled in the valley of the Jordan, together with all his flocks, and I myself added more to them. He kept his sheep and journeyed as far as Sodom, and he bought a house for himself in Sodom and dwelt in it. But I dwelt on the mountain of Bethel, and it grieved me that my nephew Lot had departed from me. And God appeared to me in a vision at night and said to me, Go to Ramoth Hazor which is north of Bethel, the place where you dwell, and lift up your eyes and look to the east and to the west and to the south and to the north, and behold all this land which I give to you and your seed forever. The next morning, I went up to Ramoth Hazor, and from that high place I beheld the land from the river of Egypt to Lebanon and Sinir, and from the great sea to Oran, and all the land of Gibel as far as Kadesh, and all the great desert to the east of Oran and Sinir as far as Euphrates. And he said to me, I will give all this land to your seed and they shall possess it forever. And I will multiply your seed like the dust of the earth which no man can number, neither shall any man number your seed. Rise and go. Behold the length and breadth of the land, for it is yours, and after you, I will give it to your seed forever. And I, Abram, departed to travel about and see the land. I began my journey at the river Gin and traveled along the coast of the sea until I came to the mountain of the bull, Taurus. Then I traveled from the coast of the great salt sea and journeyed towards the east by the mountain of the bull, across the breadth of the land, until I came to the river Euphrates. I journeyed along the Euphrates until I came to the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, in the east, and I traveled along the coast of the Red Sea until I came to the tongue of the Sea of Reeds, the modern Red Sea, which flows out from the Red Sea. Then I pursued my way in the south until I came to the river Gin, and returning, I came to my house in peace and found all things prosperous there. I went to dwell at the oaks of Mamre, which is at Hebron, northeast of Hebron, and I built an altar there, and laid on it a sacrifice and an oblation to the Most High God. I ate and drank there, I and all the men of my household, and I sent for Mamre, Ornam, and Eshcol, the 3 Amorite brothers, my friends, and they ate and drank with me. Before these days, Kedorlaomer king of Elam had set out with Amraphel king of Babylon, Arioch king of Kaptok, and Tidal king of the nations which lie between the rivers, and they had waged war against Bera king of Sodom, Birsha king of Gomorrah, Shino king of Admah, Shemaiah king of Zeboim, and against the king of Bela. All these had made ready for battle in the valley of Siddim, and the king of Elam and the other kings with him had prevailed over the king of Sodom and his companions and had imposed a tribute upon them. For 12 years they had paid their tribute to the king of Elam, but in the 13th year they rebelled against him. And in the 14th year, the king of Elam placed himself at the head of all his allies and went up by the way of the wilderness, and they smote and pillaged from the river Euphrates onward. They smote the Rephaim who were at Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zamzamim who were at Ammon, the Emim who were at Shaveh Hakirioth, and the Horites who were in the mountains of Gibel, until they came to El Paran which is in the wilderness. And they returned, at Hazazon Tamar. The king of Sodom went out to meet them, together with the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, and they fought a battle in the valley of Siddim against Kedorlaomer king of Elam and the kings who were with him. But the king of Sodom was vanquished and fled, and the king of Gomorrah fell into the pits. And the king of Elam carried off all the riches of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they took Lot the nephew XXII of Abram who dwelt with them in Sodom, together with all his possessions. Now one of the shepherds of the flocks which Abram had given to Lot escaped from captivity and came to Abram. At that time Abram dwelt in Hebron. He told him that Lot his nephew had been taken, together with all his possessions, and that he had not been slain, and that the kings had gone by the way of the great valley, of the Jordan, in the direction of their land, taking captives, and plundering and smiting and slaying, and that they were journeying towards the land of Damascus. Abram wept because of Lot his nephew. Then he braced himself, he rose up and chose from among his servants 318 fighting men trained for war, and Ornam, and Eshcol and Mamre went with him also. He pursued them until he came to Dan, and came on them while they were camped in the valley of Dan. He fell on them at night from 4 sides and during the night he slew them, he crushed them and put them to flight, and all of them fled before him until they came to Helbon which is north of Damascus. He rescued from them all their captives, and all their booty and possessions. He also delivered Lot his nephew, together with all his possessions, and he brought back all the captives which they had taken. When the king of Sodom learned that Abram had brought back all the captives and all the booty, he came out to meet him, and he went to Salem, which is Jerusalem. Abram camped in the valley of Shaveh, which is the valley of the king, the valley of Beth-Hakerem, and Melchizedek king of Salem brought out food and drink to Abram and to all the men who were with him. He was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed Abram and said, Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, Lord of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him the tithe of all the possessions of the king of Elam and his companions. Then the king of Sodom approached and said to Abram, My lord Abram, give me the souls which are mine, which you have delivered from the king of Elam and taken captive, and you may have all the possessions. Then said Abram to the king of Sodom, I raise my hand this day to the Most High God, Lord of heaven and earth. I will take nothing of yours, not even a shoelace or shoestrap, lest you say, Abram's riches come from my possessions. I will take nothing but that which the young men with me have eaten already, and the portion of the 3 men who have come with me. They shall decide whether they will give you their portion. And Abram returned all the possessions and all the captives and gave them to the king of Sodom. He freed all the captives from this land who were with him, and sent them all back. After these things, God appeared to Abram in a vision and said to him, Behold, 10 years have passed since you departed from Haran. For 2 years you dwelt here and you spent 7 years in Egypt, and 1 year has passed since you returned from Egypt. And now examine and count all you have, and see how it has grown to be double that which came out with you from Haran. And now do not fear, I am with you, I am your help and your strength. I am a shield above you and a mighty safeguard round about you. Your wealth and possessions shall multiply greatly. But Abram said, My Lord God, I have great wealth and possessions, but what good shall they do to me? I shall die naked, childless shall I go hence. A child from my household shall inherit from me. Eliezer son, shall inherit from me. And he said to him, He shall not be your heir, but one who shall spring from your body shall inherit from you.